It's Christmas time, and it's the season of good cheer. But not all of us are in good cheer at all times. So if you find yourself just not quite feeling it, here's some things that we might be able to help you with to get out of that funk. Hey, welcome to WizNugs. And we want to talk a little bit about feeling good or feeling merry as the season is coming upon us. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's the season to be merry and to be happy and to be joyful. But there's a lot of reasons and a lot of times and a lot of scenarios where that just isn't the case. And regardless of our best attempts, we just don't get there. So what are some of the things that we can do to help us become a little bit more joyful, a little bit merry? I think of some of the practices that I do if I'm just not quite feeling it. In past years, there's been several Christmases where I just didn't feel like I was feeling the mood, right? So what did I need to do? Well, first there was a little bit of analysis of what's actually bugging me right now. Is it the season itself? Am I correlating it with something that happened in the past that was like a negative thing? Maybe it was a passing of a family member or friend, or a family event happened where, the family had some kind of outburst, and then there was a splitting of, communications, or just the season in general, maybe just a bah humbug kind of person, it's possible, right?
Yeah. And one exercise that's really good for that is to look back at the last time that you can remember feeling good and look at where you are now. And in that timeline in between those 2 points, you can stop and say, what changed from that time, the last time I was feeling good till now? And you can kind of dig deeper into that, because a lot of times our emotions are tied to things that are deeper down inside us that we don't necessarily realize kind of what's going on. So in those times, this is just a helpful exercise. Then once you've isolated what changed, then you can say, okay, why did that event, why did that change cause this emotion in me?
Yeah.
And that's a way that we can kind of go about maybe just rethinking the way that we're interacting with that particular event. Sometimes that's enough.
Yeah, and sometimes the event itself is correlated to your feeling, but sometimes something just happened during that time frame, and it's not related at all. But because we are emotional creatures first, we correlate it. Well, when did it happen, and what was going on at that time? Well, it was right around Christmas, and I was dating this particular person, and I thought this was the one, and it broke up at that point in time. It was over with. And so now I hate it. I hate Christmas because it reminds me of this person, and it ruined it for me. And we talked about this before. We talked about bringing baggage from previous experiences forward with us because we do this association. So there's a process, and I do not remember the name, so I apologize, of being able to do the analysis of looking at the event itself and then looking at it and saying, well, did it really have anything to do with this particular season, this particular holiday, or what's going on this year? And being able to disassociate it and say, no, this is separate and it's important. And I do want to still remember it. I still have things I need to do with it. But this has no correlation to my family or my friends or the people that I'm around at work. And I shouldn't take this feeling and put it upon them, right? They're not the cause. So there is no correlation, and I don't need to conflate the two. And I apologize for not knowing the term or the phraseology around this. It was something that I read a while ago. So if I start feeling in a bad mood about something, or around this time frame, like I'm just not feeling Christmas this year, and I don't want to hang lights, and I don't want to tree. And I get that way. I say, okay, why do I feel this way? Part of it is going back and looking and saying, well, when did I start feeling grumpy versus when I was last happy? But a lot of it is like, okay, I already know what it is. It's this particular thing happened at this time, and I always end up remembering it, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously. And then I start bringing it into my current mood, much to the chagrin of the people that are around me. So again, I apologize for not knowing the term. I'll do my best to look it up.
It sounds a bit like what we talked about in our episode on cognitive reframing.
Sure.
So if you haven't seen that one, I think it's really worthwhile.
And we'll try to link that one on the end of the video as well.
That basically it's all about changing the way that you're thinking about something. So the frame is like the way it's the border, right? It's the thing that colors how we perceive the event. It's not that the event itself was necessarily good or bad. I mean, if you had a death in the family, that's hard.
Sure.
If you have a lot of times the first Christmas after the passing of a loved one is really tough.
Right.
Because
it's the first Christmas without them.
You miss them, and the tradition has to change if they were involved in a tradition of something that's going on.
Right.
So for those people who are in that situation, feel for you. Life can go on, and we can build new traditions. I heard once that all great stories come down to either comedy or tragedy.
Okay.
Yeah, comedy meaning the continuation of life, tragedy being the end of life.
Right.
So if a story ends with a death, then that story is deemed a tragedy. If it ends with like a wedding or the birth of a child, that's a comedy. It's the continuation of life.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if we just give up when something bad happens, then it's always a tragedy. But if we keep going and continue on and build new traditions and make new friendships and just keep going,
right,
then we've made the story into a comedy, not in the current, like laugh out loud sort of situation, but it's a celebration of life rather than a mourning of death.
And we talked about this before, and the thing I wanted to bring up is that you can still remember, if in the case of a passing or an event that happened, we can go back and talk about what we talked about before, and that's the focusing on the things that you have gratitude towards. And I think that was the episode where we talked, like during Thanksgiving, we talked about gratitude. Yeah. And focusing on the happy things. That doesn't mean you forget that there are things that have happened to you that may not make you merry and bright, but that you can, there's still things that happened during that time frame or previous Christmases or
sure,
previous events that make you smile, that make you happy, right? It doesn't necessarily alleviate the bad thing, but if you can focus on that.
Right. Processing and moving forward, yeah.
And getting yourself out of that funk, right? That spiral that you end up going down when you start, going down that negative path. And I think it's very key. And sometimes you can do that on your own. Sometimes you reach out to a family member. Sometimes you reach out to a sibling. Sometimes you reach out to a parent, or maybe it's just a good friend.
So that's one of the biggest things for breaking, not just breaking a pattern, but also for getting through something like depression or a depressing time. Even if it's not like clinical depression per se, right. If you're just feeling down, we're social creatures. Even the most introverted of us need some form of human connection. So if that's, like you said, a family member or a friend, or if you don't have a family member or a friend, find somebody that you can connect with on a human level. So being able to do that, whether that's a professional like a therapist or a counselor, I highly recommend. Counseling is awesome.
And there may be situations where you just you may not have that person in your life or an outlet that you can, bounce things off of to be able to get through these feelings. And so counseling is phenomenal for that. And I would say, just from the point of, it's a person who's going to be non-biased. They're not bringing in anything to it except what you need to talk about, right? And they're going to be able to help listen to you, and they're going to be able to help you apply tools and their knowledge to get you through things. And I'm not saying that everyone should see a counselor, but I think everybody should have that as an option in their tool belt to say, this is a tool that's available to me, and then I can go out and employ and use if I need to.
And it's funny you mentioned tool belt, because that's actually one of the metaphors that really connected with me about counseling in general, right. Is that a counselor or a therapist isn't going to fix your problems. And they're not even going to tell you how to fix your problems. What they do is they help you put tools in your tool chest. And then when your car breaks down, which is, it happens. We all have
flat tire,
breakdowns, mentally at some points. There's stuff that's hard. But it's all about having the tools necessary to cope with that when it comes. So, we talked in another previous episode about coping strategies and ways of dealing with things. So one of those things that comes to mind as just being baseline, if you're not doing this already, do this. Start some kind of exercise practice. Studies show that exercise boosts mood in just myriad of ways. It doesn't have to be anything in specific. If you like lifting weights, if you like running or pull-ups or push-ups or whatever, wherever you're at, you can find some level of exercise that'll be good for you. Again, the internet is your friend on this. There's so much out there that is free and easy to access that'll get you through getting started at something. So if you're not already doing that, that's huge. And it can have lasting benefits for endorphin production and regulation of neurotransmitters. It does so much to just kind of keep things level.
Another thing is get outside and get some sunshine. Vitamin D production that we get from being out in the sun is so important to maintaining not only a good functioning, healthy body, but also it helps us with our mood. The vitamin D that we get from the sun helps us with our mood. And I'm a guy who likes avoiding the sun, right? I sit in front of a computer all day, and when I get done sitting in front of the computer all day, I kind of just want to not sit in front of the computer, but I go in front of another screen. Or, I'm doing something inside the house. I'm messing around with my 3D printer, something, right? Getting stuff ready for a D&D game. But I'm almost always inside, and I have to remind myself, I should probably go outside just for a little bit, even if it's just for a walk around the yard or something. Get enough time in it, as much as you can, to get that sunshine on you. It's so helpful.
And a vitamin D deficiency can mirror the same effects of clinical depression.
Yeah, and you don't know that if you're not aware, and if you might be in a situation where you don't get a lot of outside time, right? So you have to make an effort for it. But, if you give that a shot, you find out that that's actually getting you where, I don't feel like I'm in a rut anymore. I kind of feel positive about something. The sunshine did that? Yeah, well, when we were first, however you want to phrase it, created, evolved, however, we were outside a lot. We only used shelter for, the bad weather and stuff of that nature. We weren't always in the cave. We weren't always in the hut, right? That wasn't the case, right? It was for shelter from things that might harm us, but the rest of the time we're out there hunting or gathering or doing whatever we need to do. We're in the sunshine all the time. Now, granted, we probably didn't have clinical psychologists or anything around that time frame, but it's very interesting to find out that being outside and having interaction, exercise, and sunshine is a big part of feeling better.
There's another funny thing that goes along with that, and that is I read about this study where they were looking at outcomes for patients in hospital.
Okay.
So people who were basically stuck in their hospital room, if they could see a tree from their window, they statistically had better outcomes than people who could not see greenery or plant life from their window.
Did they have like a statistic on or any kind of analysis on that, or why that was?
Basically, what the outcome of the study was, if you go out and see plants, this does something in our brains. Again, we're talking about, is this evolutionary biology? I don't know. I don't get that part of it. I don't know where it comes from or why. But the gist of it is, if we're looping all this down to, go take a walk outside. Because if you can see green plants and you're getting sunshine and you're getting exercise, triple threat.
Right.
That's just going to be huge for getting out of the doldrums or processing, being in the dumps.
We want to kind of keep this episode a little bit short because we know people are busy during the holidays. We know that you have things that you need to do and places you got to go. We just want to say that if you're not feeling quite that holiday spirit, get outside, get some sunshine, get some exercise in, do that walk. You're going to find that it's very helpful. And like Casey said, If you're in a situation where that's just not quite doing it, reach out. Reach out to your family members, reach out to your friends, or reach out to a counselor or a professional therapist. You're going to find that being able to share your mood or how you're feeling with people is very cathartic and will sometimes be the thing that you need to be able to get you out of that funk.
Thanks for joining us this week on WizNugs, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Thanks for joining us today on WizNugs. If you liked what you heard, spread the word. For more information, head over to mywiznugs.com.